Let go. That was not meant to go with you. Lesson 1. The Garden of Your Mind. The world we live in is a reflection of the thoughts we cultivate in our minds. I'm reminded of a story about two neighboring gardens in a small countryside community. One garden was meticulously tended. The soil turned regularly, seeds planted with care, watering done faithfully, and weeds pulled promptly. The other was largely neglected, visited occasionally with half-hearted efforts, but mostly left to the whims of nature and circumstance. By midsummer, the difference was striking. The tended garden flourished with vibrant vegetables, fragrant herbs, and beautiful flowers. The neglected plot had some growth, but it was primarily weeds, with a few struggling plants fighting for survival among them. The message here is unmistakable, my friends. Our minds work precisely the same way as these gardens. We become what we think about most of the time. This is not merely a pleasant philosophy. It is a fundamental law of human psychology. Your mind is continuously absorbing and processing information, much like soil receives seeds. Every thought you entertain is a seed planted. Some thoughts are like the seeds of magnificent redwoods, thoughts of possibility, growth, and achievement. Others are like weeds, doubt, fear, and regret about things not meant to go with you on your journey. When you focus on problems, limitations, and past disappointments, you are essentially cultivating weeds in your mental garden. These negative thoughts take root quickly and spread with remarkable efficiency if not addressed. They choke out the productive plants of opportunity and positive expectation. But here's the wonderful truth. You are the gardener of your own mind. You decide what grows there. You possess the magnificent power of choice, the ability to select which thoughts you will nurture and which you will remove. Each morning when you rise, you have the chance to weed your mental garden. Notice the thoughts that don't serve your highest good. Recognize when you're dwelling on past failures or relationships that weren't meant to be permanent fixtures in your life. These thoughts must be gently but firmly removed to make room for better things God has prepared for you. Then, with the same deliberate care, plant new seeds. Read uplifting material. Listen to inspiring messages. Engage in conversation that elevates your thinking. Visualize your goals as already accomplished. Express gratitude for the blessings you have and those on their way to you. This gardening doesn't happen overnight. The most beautiful gardens require consistent attention. Some days you may only have time to pull a few weeds. Other days you might plant an entire new section. What matters is regular tending. What are you thinking about most of the time? Your answer to this question will reveal what your life will become. Your circumstances today are the harvest of yesterday's thinking, and your thoughts today are creating tomorrow's reality. Let go of the thoughts that were never meant to define you. They simply don't belong in the garden of possibility that is your mind. Clear that space, my friend. Something better is waiting to grow there. Lesson 2. The courage to release. Have you ever watched a trapeze artist in full flight? There's that breathtaking moment when they must release their grip on the first bar to catch the second. For a split second, they are suspended in midair, neither here nor there, completely free, yet completely vulnerable. That moment is the perfect metaphor for what we must do with those things in our lives that were never meant to travel with us. Progress requires release. This is not merely a suggestion. It is an immutable law of growth. Just as the snake must shed its skin to continue its development, so must we shed those aspects of our lives that have served their purpose. The job that once challenged you, but now constrains your talents. The relationship that taught you valuable lessons, but now drains your spirit. The beliefs about yourself that once protected you, but now limit your vision. Why do we cling so desperately to what no longer serves us? Simply put, we are wired for attachment. The familiar, even when painful, offers a certain comfort that the unknown cannot promise. Our minds, in their endless quest for safety, prefer the discomfort we know to the possibility we don't. This is why letting go requires such tremendous courage. It asks us to trust in something we cannot yet see. Fear is the great immobilizer. It whispers convincing lies, What if nothing better comes along? What if you're making a terrible mistake? What if you can't handle what comes next? These questions paralyze us into inaction, keeping us tethered to situations and circumstances that God has clearly marked with an expiration date. But consider this. Your hands were designed not only to hold, but also to release. When you finally summon the courage to let go of what is no longer meant for you, something miraculous happens. Your hands become free to receive what is. The freedom that follows release isn't merely the absence of burden. It is the presence of possibility. Many people live their entire lives without experiencing this freedom, carrying baggage long after the journey for which it was packed has ended. They drag along resentments from decades past, outdated adages, dreams that belong to someone else's life story. The weight becomes so familiar they forget they have the option to set it down. Tonight, I invite you to take out a sheet of paper and write a goodbye letter to something you know you need to release. It could be a grudge, a goal that no longer aligns with your values, or a self-limiting belief. Be specific about what you're releasing and why. Express gratitude for what it taught you. Then, when you're ready, destroy the letter as a symbolic act of release. Remember this simple truth. The hands that cling cannot receive new gifts. Your willingness to let go is not an act of surrender. It is an act of faith. Faith that God has something better prepared for the space you're creating. Faith that by releasing what was never meant to go with you, you are making room for what was always meant to be yours. Lesson 3. The Divine Vacuum. There exists a principle in nature so profound, yet so easily overlooked, that understanding it can transform your entire life. Nature, in all its wisdom, abhors a vacuum. When something is removed, something else must take its place. This is not merely a scientific fact. It is a spiritual law that governs our lives in ways both seen and unseen. Consider the forest after a mighty tree has fallen. At first, there appears only emptiness, a void where once stood grandeur. But watch carefully. Within days, sunlight reaches places long hidden in shadow. Seeds dormant for years suddenly find the light and warmth they need. New life begins to stir. Within months, dozens of seedlings compete for this newfound space. What seemed a loss becomes the birthplace of new possibilities. Your life operates by this same divine principle. When you courageously release what was never meant to accompany you further on your journey, be it a relationship that has run its course, a career that no longer nurtures your growth, or beliefs that keep you small, you create a vacuum. And into this sacred space, life rushes with fresh opportunities, new relationships, and expanded possibilities that could never have entered while you clutched tightly to the old. Many of us resist this process. We cling to the familiar even when it causes pain, because the unknown terrifies us more than present suffering. We fill every moment with noise and activity, every corner of our homes with possessions, every relationship with words and demands, leaving no room for the new blessings waiting to enter. The master gardener knows that pruning, the deliberate creation of empty space, is essential for new growth. The artist understands that the empty canvas holds infinite potential. The composer values the silence between notes as much as the notes themselves. In the same way, the spaces you create in your life become divine invitations for greater good to enter. There comes a time between releasing the old and receiving the new that I call the sacred pause. During this interval, you may feel adrift, uncertain, even afraid. Trust this process. The farmer who plants seeds must wait through a period where nothing appears to be happening above ground. Yet beneath the surface, tremendous activity prepares for breakthrough. Your task during this time is not to rush, to fill the emptiness with just anything, but to maintain the space with faithful expectation. A cluttered mailbox cannot receive new letters. A glass already full cannot accept fresh water. An occupied heart cannot welcome new love. Remember always, that which you release with gratitude and faith creates the necessary vacuum for your greater good to arrive. The universe cannot deliver to an address already occupied by that which was never meant to remain. The divine vacuum you create becomes the womb of your next blessing, the cradle of your coming joy. Let go, dear friend. Then watch with wonder as life brings to you gifts far beyond what you released, exactly when you are ready to receive them. Lesson 4. Seeds of Greatness. I want to tell you about something remarkable that happens in the forest of California. The mighty sequoia tree, which can grow to heights of over 300 feet and live for thousands of years, begins its life as a seed no bigger than a flake of oatmeal. Within that tiny capsule lies all the potential, all the coded instructions, to become one of the most magnificent living things on our planet. My friends, you are much the same. Within you right now are the seeds of greatness, waiting for the right conditions to sprout and grow. This is not wishful thinking or idle philosophy. It is the fundamental truth about human potential. Each of us comes into this world with natural talents, inherent abilities that distinguish us from everyone else who has ever lived. These seeds of greatness aren't always obvious at first glance. Sometimes they lie dormant for years, waiting for the right moment, the right encouragement, the right challenge to stimulate their growth. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who don't isn't usually found in natural talent alone. Rather, it's in the consistent nurturing of those talents. The concert pianist practices for thousands of hours. The successful entrepreneur fails repeatedly before finding the right formula. The respected teacher continuously refines their methods year after year. What many fail to understand is that adversity, those challenging times we typically try to avoid, actually provides the essential nutrients for our growth. Just as the sequoia seed requires the heat of a forest fire to crack open its shell and germinate, your greatest abilities often emerge during your most difficult seasons. I remember a young woman named Sarah who lost her job during an economic downturn. For years, she had ignored her natural gift for design, keeping it as merely a hobby while working at a position that provided security but little fulfillment. When that security was suddenly removed, Sarah's seed of greatness finally had room to grow. Today, her design studio employs 12 people, and she often remarks that losing her job was the best thing that ever happened to her. Your path to greatness won't look like anyone else's. The particular combination of talents, experiences, and insights that you possess is entirely unique. Your job isn't to imitate others, but to discover and develop what has already been planted within you. Take time this week to identify your natural strengths. What activities energize rather than drain you? What tasks do you perform with unusual ease or excellence? What problems do you solve instinctively while others struggle? These are clues pointing to your seeds of greatness. Remember, as I've often said, success is not a destination, but rather the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Your greatness will unfold gradually as you recognize, nurture, and express the gifts already within you. The world needs your unique contribution, the mighty tree that only your particular seed can produce. The difference between where you are and where you could be is found in the daily cultivation of your inherent gifts. Water them with learning, fertilize them with practice, expose them to the sunlight of opportunity, and always remember that the greatest oak was once a little nut that held its ground. Lesson 5. The Quiet Voice Within. This is Earl Nightingale, and today we're going to explore one of life's most powerful yet overlooked gifts, that quiet voice inside you that knows the way when your logical mind is lost in the fog. I once knew a man in Chicago who canceled his flight at the last minute because of an overwhelming feeling that something wasn't right. He couldn't explain it. His colleagues called him foolish as they boarded. Hours later, that plane experienced catastrophic engine failure. While everyone survived, his decision, made purely on that quiet inner prompting, spared him considerable trauma. That quiet voice within you is constantly speaking. The question is, are you listening? In this noisy world of constant distraction, we've forgotten how to hear the whispers of our own intuition. Yet that inner guidance system has evolved over thousands of years to protect and direct us. Your intuition is different from fear, though many confuse the two. Fear feels constricting, panicky, and sends your thoughts spinning in chaotic patterns. Intuition, by contrast, arrives with a sense of calm knowing, a quiet but firm nudge in a particular direction, It doesn't argue or try to convince you. It simply presents the truth as a self-evident fact. To access this wellspring of wisdom requires stillness. Most of us live in a perpetual state of motion and noise. We wake to alarms, immediately check messages, rush through our days, and fall asleep to the glow of screens. Where in this frenetic schedule have we made space to listen? The most successful people I've known throughout my career all share one habit. They regularly create periods of complete silence. They understand that clarity comes in quiet moments. Edison, Einstein, and Ford all practiced forms of contemplative silence. They knew that solutions arise not from frantic activity, but from allowing the mind to settle into receptivity. When you begin to honor that quiet voice, something remarkable happens. Life flows more easily. Decisions that once seemed complex become clear. You find yourself precisely where you need to be, often just at the right moment. This isn't mysterious. It's simply what happens when you align with your deepest knowing. The integration of logic and intuition represents wisdom in its highest form. Your rational mind is a magnificent tool for implementing ideas, but it's your intuition that often provides the initial spark of insight. When both work in harmony, you become unstoppable. Begin today with just 5 minutes of complete silence. Find a quiet place, close your eyes and simply listen. Ask a question that's been troubling you, then release your grip on finding the answer. Just be still. Do this daily, and you'll develop what might be life's most valuable skill, the ability to hear and trust your own inner wisdom. Remember, friends, the loudest voice isn't always the wisest. Truth doesn't need to shout. The guidance you seek rarely arrives with trumpets and fanfare, but rather as a quiet certainty in your heart. The answers are already within you. Your only task is to become quiet enough to hear them. Lesson 6. The Mirror of Expectations. I'd like to share a remarkable story with you. Not long ago, a scientist named Robert Rosenthal conducted what came to be known as the Pygmalion experiment. He went into a school and administered tests to students, then randomly selected certain children and told their teachers these particular students showed unusual potential for intellectual growth. 8 months later, these randomly selected students showed significantly higher IQ gains than their classmates. Nothing was actually different about these children except for one crucial factor: their teachers' expectations. This is the mirror of expectations at work, what you truly expect, not what you hope for, not what you wish for, but what you genuinely expect deep in your soul. This is what life reflects back to you with unfailing accuracy. Many of us walk through life carrying two conflicting sets of expectations. Our conscious mind says, "I deserve success," while our deeper beliefs whisper, "You're not quite good enough." And in this battle, it is always the deeper belief that wins, like a garden that grows according to the seeds planted beneath the soil, not the flowers we imagine in our daydreams. Your life right now, every aspect of it, is the perfect reflection of your true expectations. If you find yourself repeatedly encountering the same disappointments, the same types of challenging relationships, the same financial ceiling, look not to external circumstances, but to the mirror of your own expectations. But here's the wonderful truth. Expectations can be changed. When you understand that your mind operates according to law, that it must manifest what you deeply believe, you gain tremendous power. You need only to identify those limiting expectations and replace them systematically with new ones. Begin by observing your automatic thoughts when opportunity appears. Do you immediately think of all the reasons something won't work out? This reveals your true expectations. The good news is that just as water can wear away stone with persistent, gentle pressure, new thoughts, consistently held, can transform your deepest expectations. Picture yourself already in possession of the good you desire. Feel the reality of it. Practice this daily with emotion and conviction. Over time, what once seemed impossible begins to feel natural, even inevitable. Your expectations shift, and as they do, life must respond in kind. Remember always that we do not get what we want in life. We do not even get what we work for. We get, with mathematical precision, what we expect. This is not mysticism, but the practical application of mental law. The mirror never lies. So, examine your expectations carefully. Polish this mirror with diligence and care. For when you truly expect wonderful things, when your deepest beliefs align with your highest aspirations, you unlock doors that once appeared permanently sealed. And what awaits you beyond those doors is far greater than what you've left behind. Lesson 7. The Golden Hour of Decision. Have you ever noticed how a single decision can alter the entire trajectory of your life? This is what I call the golden hour of decision. That precious moment when you stand at the crossroads of what was and what could be. In my years observing successful people, I've discovered something remarkable. It isn't their circumstances that determine their success, but rather the quality of their decisions. The wealthy businessman wasn't born with a silver spoon. The respected community leader wasn't granted authority by birthright. Each stepped into their destiny through decisive action when the moment called for it. You see, life presents each of us with pivotal moments, golden hours when we must choose whether to hold on to familiar comfort or release it in favor of potential greatness. These decisions aren't always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes they're as simple as choosing to forgive, to trust, or to begin again. But make no mistake, these quiet crossroads are where lives are transformed. Consider the farmer who understands that harvest requires decision. He must decide when to plant, when to water, and crucially, when to prune. Yes, pruning, that necessary cutting away, is itself a decision that determines the abundance of future fruit. The farmer doesn't mourn the branches he removes. He understands their removal creates space for greater growth. Your life works in much the same way. Those relationships, habits, and beliefs that no longer serve your highest good must be decisively released, not with bitterness or regret, but with a calm assurance that their season in your life has concluded. Some of you listening may be facing such a golden hour right now. Perhaps it's a career that provides security but stifles your spirit. Maybe it's a relationship that once nourished you but now drains your joy. Or possibly it's a limiting belief about yourself that's grown too comfortable over the years. Remember this. Indecision is itself a decision. When we refuse to choose, we choose by default. We choose by definition. We choose limitation. We choose limitation. We choose to remain exactly where and what we are. God has placed within you an extraordinary compass, that quiet knowing that signals when something is meant to remain in your life and when it's time to let go. Trust this inner guidance. It rarely steers you wrong. Decision requires courage, yes. But consider the alternative. The person who cannot decide to let go of what was never meant for them cannot receive what is. They stand with closed fists, unable to grasp the blessings that await them. I challenge you today to identify one thing in your life that you know, deep in your heart, is not meant to journey further with you. Make the decision to release it gracefully. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Take one small action toward letting it go. For in that golden hour of decision, you create the necessary space for something better to enter. And enter it will, my friends. Enter it will. The universe rushes to fill the vacuum, created by decisive release with something that aligns more perfectly with your highest good and greatest purpose. Lesson 8. The Sacred Emptiness. This is the moment of truth in your journey, my friend, that uncomfortable void after letting go. It's not a punishment, but a preparation. I've studied the lives of thousands of successful men and women, and I've discovered a remarkable pattern. Before their greatest achievements, there was almost always a period of emptiness, of waiting, of sacred stillness. Consider the farmer who harvests his crop. The field must lie fallow for a season, empty, waiting. To the untrained eye, it appears nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, nutrients are being restored. The soil is rejuvenating itself, preparing for an even greater harvest to come. Is your life any different? When that relationship ended, when that job disappeared, when that opportunity slipped through your fingers, what appeared as loss was actually life-creating space for something magnificent? Most people rush to fill the emptiness, grabbing the first available substitute, clutching at shadows of what they once had. The wise person understands that this emptiness is sacred ground. I remember speaking with a young man who had lost his position at a prominent firm. He was devastated, frantically applying for similar roles, desperate to replace what was gone. I suggested something radical. What if you didn't rush to fill this space? What if you allowed yourself to sit in this emptiness for a while? 6 months later, he contacted me. That period of emptiness had revealed his true calling, something he never would have discovered had he immediately replaced what he lost. The emptiness wasn't his enemy. It was his greatest teacher. The universe abhors a vacuum, yes, but it fills that vacuum with exactly what you need, not necessarily what you think you want. The emptiness you feel after letting go is like a freshly cleared canvas, awaiting the masterpiece. Fertile ground, ready for new seeds. During this sacred emptiness, ask yourself, what am I now ready to receive? What growth was impossible before because there was no room for it? What gifts can now find their way to me because my hands are open, not clutching the past? Too often, we measure our worth by how full our lives appear, the relationships, achievements, possessions. But there is immeasurable value in emptiness. The cup must be empty before it can be filled with something fresh. The lungs must exhale fully before taking in new breath. Your sacred emptiness is not absence. It is possibility in its purest form. So when you feel that void after letting go, don't rush to fill it. Don't scramble to replace what's gone. Instead, honor this emptiness. Protect it from the world's demands to quickly move on. Sit with it. Listen to it. This emptiness is whispering secrets about your next chapter, if only you'll be still enough to hear. Remember, nature never rushes, yet everything is accomplished. The sacred emptiness you feel today is preparing you for the greater fullness of tomorrow. It wasn't meant to go with you because something better, something perfectly aligned with your highest good, is already on its way. Lesson 9. The Grand Exchange. This is the law of the universe, a principle so profound yet so simple that most overlook it entirely. When you release what was not meant for you, you participate in life's grandest exchange program. I've studied the lives of successful men and women for decades, and I've discovered this truth. Nothing of value ever leaves your life without something better preparing to take its place. Think about the changing of seasons. Nature doesn't cling desperately to summer when autumn approaches. The trees don't grasp their leaves in fear. They release them with magnificent colors, knowing that this surrender is necessary for the new growth of spring. This is the way of all life. You see, most people live in a state of anxious attachment. They hold tightly to relationships that have run their course, careers that no longer fulfill them, habits that drain their energy, and beliefs that limit their potential. They hold on because they fear the empty space that letting go creates. But that space is not empty at all. It is pregnant with possibility. Consider the farmer who understands this principle perfectly. He must clear last season's crop before planting new seeds. If he clings to the withered remains of yesterday's harvest, where would today's seeds find soil? The clearing creates the condition for abundance. The same is true in your life. That relationship that ended, it was clearing space for connections that better match the person you're becoming. That job you lost, it was making room for work that will utilize your greatest talents. That dream that didn't materialize, it was making way for an even better vision. I remember a young woman who came to me heartbroken after her business failed. She had invested everything, her savings, her time, her identity. When it collapsed, she felt her world had ended. But within that painful release was a hidden gift. The skills she developed, the lessons she learned, and the connections she made became the foundation for a new venture that would never have been possible otherwise. The apparent loss was actually a cosmic upgrade. This grand exchange operates by an immutable law. Quality matters more than quantity. What you receive in exchange for what you release will be of higher quality, better matched to your authentic self, and more aligned with your purpose, even if it appears smaller at first glance. Trust this process. When you feel the impulse to cling, to grasp, to desperately hold on, pause. Ask yourself, was this meant to go the distance with me? Listen for the honest answer. If it's no, then release it with gratitude for its season in your life. Remember, you cannot receive with clenched fists. Open your hands. Let go. The universe abhors a vacuum and rushes to fill it with something that serves your highest good. This is not wishful thinking. It is how life works. What you release creates space for what you deserve, and what you deserve is always better than what you cling to out of fear. The grand exchange awaits your participation. Will you trust enough to let go? Lesson 10. The empty hands that receive. Have you ever watched a child clutching an old, broken toy? Even when offered something new and wonderful, the youngster hesitates, reluctant to release what's familiar. The parent waits patiently, knowing the child cannot receive the new gift while clinging to the old. My friends, we are much like that child. We cling to situations, relationships, and beliefs long past their usefulness, and in doing so, we prevent ourselves from receiving what's next in the divine plan for our lives. Consider this fundamental truth. You cannot receive with closed hands. When we grasp tightly to what we believe we cannot live without, we create a barrier to the very abundance waiting to flow into our lives. This is not merely poetic thinking. It is a principle that operates with unfailing consistency throughout the universe. Nature demonstrates this principle in countless ways. The tree must release its leaves in autumn before new growth can emerge in spring. The snake must shed its skin to continue growing. The tide must recede before it can return with renewed force. In each case, there is a letting go that precedes new possibility. What are you holding on to today? Perhaps it's a relationship that no longer nurtures your spirit. Maybe it's a career that once brought fulfillment but now feels like a prison. It could be an old dream that's keeping you from seeing the new horizons before you. Or perhaps most challenging of all, it's a belief about yourself that limits what you think possible. Nothing truly valuable can ever be taken from you. The things that define your character, your wisdom, your capacity for love, these remain yours regardless of external circumstances. What falls away is making room for something that aligns more perfectly with your highest good. The process of releasing isn't about abandonment or failure. It's about faith in life's continuous unfolding. When you trust that the universe operates with purpose and design, letting go becomes an act of courage rather than surrender. I've observed this pattern countless times in the lives of successful men and women. The business leader who lost everything only to build something far greater. The artist who abandoned a comfortable style to discover their true expression. The individual who emerged from a painful relationship separation to find a connection that brought unimagined joy. This letting go is not passive. It requires the active decision to open your hands and heart. It means saying, I release this with gratitude for what it has taught me, and I stand ready to receive what comes next. Then, like the trapeze artist between swings, you experience that moment of exhilarating freedom, no longer attached to what was, not yet grasping what will be. Take a moment right now to imagine yourself with open, upturned hands. Feel the lightness, the readiness, the expectancy. This is the posture of abundance. This is the posture of abundance. This is how we align ourselves with the natural flow of good that seeks expression in our lives. My friends, the universe abhors a vacuum and rushes to fill empty spaces with new substance. Your empty hands will not remain empty for long. They are about to receive something wonderful. Lesson 11. The empty hands receive. This is one of the most remarkable principles of life, my friends. When your hands are cluttered with yesterday's treasures, they cannot grasp tomorrow's gifts. I've observed this truth play out countless times in the theater of human experience. Consider the trapeze artist high above the crowd. There comes that critical moment when he must release his grip on the first bar to catch the second. In that brief space between letting go and taking hold, he experiences both total vulnerability and perfect possibility. This is the space where faith lives. Most people cling desperately to what they have, even when it no longer serves them. They hold tight to dead-end jobs, toxic relationships, limiting beliefs, and outdated dreams. Not because these things bring joy, but because the familiar discomfort feels safer than the unknown opportunity. But nature abhors a vacuum, my friends. This is cosmic law. When you create emptiness with purpose, the universe rushes to fill it with something new. I've seen people release relationships that drained their spirit only to find themselves, within months, connected to souls that elevate them. I've witnessed professionals walk away from secure positions that stifled their creativity, only to discover vocations that set their talents ablaze. The principle operates with mathematical certainty. What you release creates the necessary space for what you require.
A farmer understands this instinctively. He doesn't clutch last season's harvest to his chest while weeping that it's all he'll ever have. He knows the cycle demands release. He plants those seeds in faith, watches them disappear into the dark earth, and waits with certainty for new growth. Your life follows this same pattern of release and renewal. That opportunity that slipped through your fingers. It wasn't your final chance. It was making room for something more aligned with your highest good. That relationship that ended despite your best efforts. It was creating space for connections that will better serve your journey. The universe operates with perfect efficiency. Nothing that truly belongs in your life can be permanently lost, and nothing that departs was ever truly yours to keep.
Practice releasing with gratitude rather than resentment. When you close a door, whisper thank you for what it taught you, then turn expectantly toward the new doors ready to open. Live with open hands, releasing and receiving in the natural rhythm of life. Remember this, my friends. God's gifts come to us not when our hands are clenched in fear of loss, but when they are open in faithful expectation. The closed fist can hold only what it already possesses, but the open palm can receive the universe. Your greater good is always approaching, but it can only arrive when you've created room for it. So release that which is no longer yours to carry. Something better awaits your empty, ready hands. Lesson 12. Your greatest destiny awaits. This moment right now, as you read these words, marks the beginning of a new journey. It's a curious thing about life's pathways. They often narrow before they expand. Just when the trail seems to disappear altogether, you round a bend to discover vast, open meadows of possibility that were previously hidden from view. Throughout our exploration together, we've discussed the necessity of release, the letting go of that which was never meant to journey with you further. Like the skilled mountain climber who must abandon heavy equipment as the air grows thin near the summit, you too must continually assess what to carry forward and what to leave behind. I once spoke with a gentleman who had lost his business of 30 years. For months, he carried the weight of this loss like a stone in his pocket, reaching for it constantly, turning it over, examining its edges until his fingers were raw. "I've lost everything," he told me, his voice heavy with despair.
6 months later, I encountered this same man. There was a lightness about him, a certain gleam in his eye that hadn't been there before. Losing that business was the greatest gift, he said. I never would have discovered my true calling otherwise.
What had changed? He had finally set down the stone. He had accepted the divine wisdom that some doors close precisely so others may open. Remember this, the universe operates on principles of abundance, not scarcity. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your life. When you create empty space, through deliberate release, fresh opportunity rushes in with the force of ocean waves filling a hollow in the sand. The greatest tragedy isn't in losing what wasn't meant for you. It's in clinging so tightly to it that your hands remain closed when greater gifts are offered. Consider the butterfly. If you were to help it from its chrysalis, interrupting its struggle, you would doom it to death. Those difficult moments of pushing against restriction are precisely what force fluid into its wings, giving it the strength for flight. Your challenges serve the same purpose. As we conclude our journey together, I invite you to stand at the edge of your own possibility. Look back not with regret, but with gratitude for every experience that shaped you. Look forward not with anxiety, but with the calm expectation that your path continues to unfold perfectly. The release of what was never meant to journey with you is not an ending. It's the beginning of your greatest story. It's the prerequisite for receiving what's truly meant for you. The universe has been waiting patiently for you. The universe has been waiting patiently for you to create the space needed for your greatest blessings. Your life's masterpiece requires a canvas with room for new brushstrokes. Your symphony needs spaces between notes to create its melody. Your greatest destiny awaits not in what you cling to, but in what you courageously release. Go forth now. Open your hands. Release what was never yours to keep, and watch with wonder as they fill again with gifts beyond your imagining.